DIY dog here, back from a long hiatus. As you can see, the Silverado has undergone a bit of a facelift. I went with the infamous 2500 HD swap, and that's basically you have to use the 2500 upper bumper pad and the grill. You can actually reuse the factory bumper. You have to drop your bumper brackets down 1.5 inches to make this work because of the dip in the middle of the bumper. But other than that, I added tow hooks before I actually did the swap. But that's one of the things you have to look out for. Once you drop the bumper brackets down 1.5 inches, the valence is actually going to sit right on top of the tow hook, so you will have to cut them in order, if you still plan on using them. If you want to get a chain around them or a strap, you're going to have to cut them, because like I said, the valence, it literally sits right on top of the bumper brackets. I added the lower air dam. This is from an 05-06 Chevy Tahoe, but they will fit the 9902 Silverado. I added fog lights. These are smoked fog lights. The LS trim does not come with fog lights, so you will have to cut those. You can actually buy a new valence with the cutouts already in them, or you can just get a box cutter and cut the cutouts out yourself. The bumper still has the place where the brackets bolt up to, so again, it would just be cheaper just to get a box cutter and cut the inserts out and just put your fog lights in. I actually have them running off of a splitter. I plan on, in the future, I may actually put these on a toggle switch and use a relay. But as for right now, I have a splitter to where they come on automatically with the headlights, and they, as you know, they turn off when you put them on bright. But that's pretty much it for the additions to the truck. I will give you a forewarning that, again, once you drop your brackets down 1.5 inches, the lower valence sits right on top of the tow hooks. So if you plan on keeping them, you will have to cut your valence. Another thing to look out for is these upper bumper bolts. Once you drop it down, these will be too long. They will actually bottom out against the frame. So you're going to have to use it's a M12 by 175 pitch by 30 millimeters. And on the underside, so now you have a big gap in between the frame bracket and the actual lower bumper bracket. So what I did was I put a spacer in between those so I can actually tighten it down, because before, if you actually were to tighten this, it would actually bend the bottom bracket frame up. I didn't want it to bend it, so I just put a spacer in between on both sides. I got these from Ace Hardware. It's a Hill Supply here where I live. Hill Supply, Ace Hardware. And these brackets were kind of expensive for what they are. They're about $4.19 a piece. And this screw here, like I said, I had to replace this one because it wasn't long enough. A gap, and the lower bumper bolts are going to be too short. So you're going to have to go with an M12 175 pitch by at least a 60 millimeter bolt. Let me see. As far as the side bolts, you should be able to loosen these two bolts, and then this bar right here, this bracket support, it'll drop down far enough for you to get the screw in this hole. Now, they lined up pretty good for me on my side on this truck, but on the other side, I actually had to take one of these bolts out, because after I got this bumper from Pull Apart, and once I installed it, I realized the bumper is twisted. It looked straight when I bought it, but the bumper is actually twisted. So my holes did not line up like they were supposed to. And see, as for right here, that's how I realized that the bumper was twisted. This pad doesn't line up right on the sides, but this bumper, this is supposed to be flush. Now it looks pretty close on this side, but on the passenger side is where you can tell that it's really off. So there's a major difference right there. Right now I'm not really worried about it. I just wanted to do the swap, but then after I did the swap, it actually made my peeling clear coat that much more noticeable. So that will come in the future. I will sand this down and repaint it and put a new layer of clear coat on it. I may end up doing the whole truck, who knows. Other than that, not much has changed since the truck, other than the 2500 HD swap. I did replace most of the front suspension. I did the upper lower control arms, the ball joints, the inner and outer tie rod ends. Let me see what else I do. Oh, and the sway bar links, those got replaced. And as far as the rear, I did the shocks as well, front and the rear shocks. And I also had to replace the axle bumper stops because they were completely ate up. Next thing I'm gonna do on this truck is I have to go back to the suspension because the factory camber caster kit hardware will not stay in place. So on my driver's side, my wheel, it leans out. I don't know if you can really tell now. Kind of depends on where I park it, but my driver's side wheel, it actually leans out at the top, and it's causing my tires, is wearing them out on the edges. So I've actually ordered a kit. I may or may not record the installation of that, but I ordered a kit so I can actually lock my alignment before I take it to the alignment shop, because I didn't want to pay for the alignment if it's not going to stay. Other than that, I will be upgrading the gauge cluster, because the cluster that's in it now, it goes haywire. Half the time my gauges sit at 0, so I never know how fast I'm going or how much gas I have. So I will be doing a gauge cluster swap. I'm probably going to go with the Cadillac Escalade, the 0102 gauge cluster. So this is currently what I'm dealing with out of my gauge cluster. I'm driving down the highway right now, but as you can see, my gauges are all on 0. And this has actually been an issue ever since I got this truck. But before, I could kind of knock on the cluster and the gauges would come on. But like now, even when I knock on it, the only ones that will come on is like the battery and the RPMs and the miles per hour. But everything else will stay sitting at 0, like the oil pressure, the temperature gauge, all that sits at 0. So probably my next update on this truck will probably be the gauge cluster. I think I'm just gonna go with the Cadillac Escalade cluster. I like the way it looks, and it also has the added transmission temp gauge as well. But yeah, this gets really annoying because I can't see. Like when I flick my lights to bright, the bright symbol does not appear. So I can never tell when I'm blinding somebody at nighttime. But yeah, that's pretty much it. She needs a paint job, but she's still my daily driver.